Hey, and welcome to the Glug Box. Today we're going to be talking to Marta Mateus. She's from Marta Vines. She owns and runs it with her husband Kevin, and they are amazing Portuguese wine importers. But more recently, they've also been diversifying with Spain and French wines that also are organic or sustainable or biodynamic. They've got this whole host of beautiful wines that we stock a lot of here. And she's going to be answering those questions that we have about organic and biodynamic and sustainable wines and what the differences are, and also about sulfur. We get a lot of people asking about sulfur in wines and what it actually does. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Marta Mateus from Marta Vines. How are you?
I'm very well, and you, my
Yeah,
dear? Are you well?
yeah.
Yeah.
How's your Monday been?
Man, crazy, man. It's been crazy. It's been mental. I still didn't stop. But
Really?
it's because we are doing a mad, big shipment from Portugal,
Uh,
the first time after Brexit. But that we are combining pallets because usually when it's a few good orders, I just bring one at a time by
yeah,
producer. But now I'm just trying to organize like a big shipment all together to see if it make it easier or a bit more cheaper as
yeah,
well. So let's see. So half of the day I spend on that. And then I think it's because it's the new month and it's this feeling of spring.
yeah.
So loads of
Positivity.
clients with
Yeah.
orders.
Oh, good, good, good,
It's
great.
good, yeah. It's
Including
good.
us, including us.
Including you, exactly.
The question that we get asked a lot when people come into Glug is, firstly they will ask about natural wines or they will ask about biodynamic and organic wines. But I think it's important to talk about sustainable wines. And what if I ask you what are sustainable wines?
Sustainability in general is taking care of our environment, is taking care of our planet, is not damaging the future generations, and this can be in wine or in many other industries. uh, for the wine and for what I believe with my project and so on, I think that the sustainability says that it's possible to do amazing wines, taking this environment side, looking after the ecosystems, the fauna, the flora, all the water supplies, taking care of all this, but as a whole, and not, well, include every single aspect of it. Also, yes, you will use fertilizers. Yes, you will use compost. Yes, you will use pesticides if you have to, just in a last resort, but things that are allowed and things that don't damage the world, or the earth that much anymore. But at the same time, to allow you to survive and to allow you to grow a culture, in this case, is a culture of grapes, which is better than like just devastate everything because maybe a pest comes and you cannot control it, and is a lot of money wasted economically, is a lot of jobs lose. So social point of view and
Yeah,
behavior
if,
and attitude.
if I can just interrupt you there, I mean, I remember you telling me about a winery that had to, lose its entire crop because they couldn't do
Right.
anything because they were organic certified,
Yeah.
and then they
Mhm.
can't do anything in the winery or on the in the vineyard to protect their crop, and they lost everything. So sustainable makes sense in a financial sense, right?
I think so. I think for a business point of view that we all have to live with and think of as well. If you can have that business attitude at the same time combining with the environment, with the taking care of the ecosystems, the surroundings, and using as much as possible what your vineyards have to offer you, what the estate that you have and that you work in has to offer you. So it's not only that you can use a lot of materials in several areas. So, for example, the Grosh, like you have the wines there in today, um, they have vines, but together with the vines, they also have horses and local produce to use for food wise for restaurants. and they use every single bit of the different areas, the versatility of all. They all interact and they all work together, and that for me it's what it makes sense, and is really taking care. And like you said, is detail, is everything about detail.
Is it sustainability? Is it certified? Can how can we, as we go into a shop, how can we know that a wine is sustainable? Is it
First,
possible?
you have to go to independent shops.
Yeah.
That is the best step
Yeah.
because they are the ones that advise.
Independent wine merchants know about these things. They have chosen the wines on their shelves because they visited the estate, or they're dealing with importers such as you. And so, when
Yeah.
I went to Grush, and they took me around, they explained everything, and that was it. It gets to you. You know what these guys are doing. You see the passion behind it.
Yeah.
So it's
You
important
get
to
that
speak to
connection.
yeah, when you go into an independent wine shop, speak to the guys behind the desk, behind
Yeah.
who are serving, because they love to tell you those stories.
Of course, and don't be afraid. I'm the first very proactive on that. As a importer, I always say, don't be afraid. Just ask. Wine is a lot to offer. It's not just for older people or people that know a lot about wine. No, everyone should try, should engage with these grapes.
Yeah.
And yes, it is difficult to know just by the looking of a bottle of wine if it's a sustainable project. So it's not like the organic, for example, that you have a stamp there and you can see straight away that is a certification. With the sustainability, it's a little bit more niche because you do have stamps, but they are either from a region inside the country, or some countries have it in more or less all the regions, but it's not as well known internationally as other certifications.
I think it's important for us to also touch on organic and the more slightly out there one, biodynamic, a little bit weird, a little bit funky. But let's talk about organic. What I mean, organic is not an easy certification for a winery or estate to get, right? It's difficult. It takes 3 years, I understand. So just explain, what is organic wine? What are they?
So, well, organic wine, think about sustainable wines. So, same kind of attitudes in thinking ideas of wine production, taking care of the ecosystem, of all your land and the grapes and so on. But you actually are applying for a program that is international, and that it has a certification, that it will be put on your label, this little green leaf that people are more used to it. And this is also a business because you apply and you have to pay a fee to be every year or every 2 years. Someone go to the vines, it just check everything to see if they are still in accordance what they need. You have a
and that fee is passed on to the consumer, right? Because it will reflect in the price of the bottle of wine.
Yeah, every little bit, all this is all reflections of that. Unfortunately, it's the world we live in. If you do want this certification to have in a paper, that's what it is. Yes, it will be more costly. Yes, it will be even more costly now after Brexit, because there is another certification that I, as an importer, have to get in order to sell organic certified wines. So yes, it is true. It's no point to say or to hide to the the final consumer, because you will pay more. Yes, you have maybe is a certification there, so they do have to apply to a lot very specific parameters. Is a process as well, so it is the 3 years, like you said. So a winery applies to get that. They start on year 1 and they follow a process till the year 3, where they are allowed, if everything goes right, to put on the labels that is actually certified organic. So it's a question of time, and you cannot use a lot of
so they don't use any chemicals, no synthetic fertilizers, all that. Everything is natural. like organic.
Everything is yeah, organic. You can use them, but the products you are allowed to use, they are very soft, which is lovely. It is very good for the environment. Then happen things like that, like you said. And I visit this producer in Alentejo, and they had these years that everything, all the weather conditions were terrible. So it was very hot, and then straight away a lot of rain. All the fields got really muddy. So imagine all this, the machinery, the tractors, and so on. They could not spray with what they are allowed, because even organic, you are allowed to spray the vines with more environmental friendly, let's say, pesticides.
Yeah.
Maybe we have another name. But they are very soft. So you have to do this over and over, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And because all the weather conditions were so bad, no machinery could go in. People could not spray the vines because it was not possible at all. So yes, everything died. So now it's like they have no vines this year.
Yeah, it's crazy, crazy, crazy. And then lastly, I mean, let's talk about biodynamic. I mean, it's a bit out there, it's a bit weird, it's a bit funky. I mean, the things I've read about biodynamic wines, like burying cow horns and, you know, and things like that. I mean, do they do like dances in the fields and stuff like that?
They do. They sing, they sing, they do the million things.
So, I mean,
But you know,
what is it? So summarize
well,
very at a root level, basically, what is it? It's about the pull of the moon and the sun and
you know, it's a whole together. So think about more or less the sustainable, actually the organic side, or no, the sustainable, plus the meteorology, and also plus a little bit of a spiritual mind.
right.
Okay, this was all created. Funny enough, biodynamic, it has a certification that you apply. So not the same as the sustainable. With biodynamic, you do have this certification like the organic, and you are simply, I think it's like following a school of ideas of a man that decided, Rudolf something Steinler, I think.
The Austrian guy, right? Yeah.
He was a big fan of the old style thinking organic products,
Yeah.
but adding these two parameters, which are quite unique, like what is this of the mystical side and the spiritual side. So for example,
it's like paying attention to the solar lunar cycle.
one side, yeah.
Rhythm of that, yeah.
So for example, yeah, Herdade dos Gros, the wines that you have there, they have one wine called Moon Harvest.
Yeah.
And Moon Harvest is one of their premium, beautiful wines. It has a little bit of biodynamics there, because they just they monitorize all the vines and how the vines are dealing and are stressed with the heat when it is harvest time. So there is one day when the moon is lined up with the tides of the sea, and on that day is when they pick up all the grapes. Wow. That day can be during the night, so moon harvest, but it can also happen during the day. It's just that one time of the year.
So all the grape pickers have to be ready, right? At any time, yeah. They can get a phone call. Where is it, in Australia or something that they call them from, or where is the center where they decide?
Well, yeah, I think now, they were working with an American space center, but right. Now I think with Europe, they have one center. I actually don't know where it is.
So they get this phone call and they say, go out and harvest now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Basically.
Yeah.
They just go for it.
But it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm. But the idea behind this, and this, yes, it can sound a little bit strange, but I think here on this side, you have a little bit of a science, because you know that when when the moons are tied up with the seas, it's a breeze if you are in a very hot area. And that breeze, it kind of relaxes the vine. So it's almost like a breath of fresh air. So the vine, the sap of the vine, it's much more fluid. So they can take a better concentration of the grape flavor. Okay. So these things, I can understand a little bit of the philosophy behind. Then you have another step or another side of proper biodynamics when you start to put the haunts of the
Yeah.
animals that die, and
Yeah, absolutely. And they
you know
buried them, and then
they
I mean,
buried
they
and
they they whittle the horn, and then they put stuff in there, right? I don't know what, but and then they bury that horn, and I mean, it's.
yeah.
I mean, I've heard
This
of animal remains being sprayed, and there's all sorts of weird things that go on.
they believe that it's to give to gods, to give the spiritual feelings to gods that will make the juice and the grapes better quality. Well, there is there is an idea behind all this,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I am a little bit pragmatic because I have to taste and I have really to understand and to see.
Interesting. So interesting. So for me personally, I think sustainable wines make a lot of sense, right? They make a lot of sense. Organic wines, I mean, yeah, absolutely. We all want to protect our environment. So, but we're going to have to pay for them. We're going to have to pay for that privilege of organic and biodynamic wines. I'm not 100% convinced yet. It's, you know,
Yeah.
there may be
Well,
something in
yeah,
it, but it's interesting. You have to try them, right? You have to give it a try and have to see. And I think Moon Harvest is a great wine to experience that. You know, we'll maybe
mm,
we can't do it in the glug box, but we'll definitely get it in store soon. And
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
visit our store for a tasting. We'll do it. We'll do it at a tasting. One last question I have, and I'm going to be
Yeah.
asking everybody about this subject. A lot of people come in and say about sulfur, the addition of sulfur to wine. And so in organic wines, do they add sulfur, first of all? Because I mean, sulfur is
Mhm.
natural, it occurs naturally anyway. So
Yeah.
all wines contain a certain level of sulfur. But
Yeah.
do organic wines have sulfur in them?
Yes.
They do.
So, sulfites is something that think about give freshness and stabilize a wine,
Mm.
basically.
It's an antioxidant, right?
Yeah, it's an antioxidant. And the problem with the sulfites lately, it seems always it's sulfites in wines. Like you said, is even like a minimal amount is natural from the fermentation that happen anyway. But since a few years ago, it's it's a level of sulfites where it's allowed to be organic, and I think it's still 300. If you pass that, you cannot use any more, call it organic. So yes, you have specific and you have limits for the sulfites to be able to be organic, to be the other one sustainable as well. But I always think that it gives this freshness and it gives to stabilize the wine, because then it happened like some biodynamics that are natural wines. And natural wines is basically they change a lot. So you open today a bottle, tomorrow you open and you don't know how it is. And the same, so it's not we don't want standard all the time, but when you import and when you are in a global market, you need at least to have an idea of what to expect of a bottle of wine. And also think that sulfites, it's also it kind of clean a little bit of the wine. So all the bacteria, that some bacteria are good for us, some bacteria are not good for us,
Yeah.
and the sulfites are going just to provide to kill the bacteria that it's not good for us. So yes,
And
I think
it,
it's very important.
yeah, I mean, because I agree with you, and I think that instability that we have sometimes as you as an importer and we as a wine merchant, and then we have all these wines coming back to us because they taste really funky, and so we've had this problem before, and that's why we tend not to do low sulfur, yes, from you,
Yeah,
but out
exactly.
sulfur free, probably we wouldn't touch
Very
it because it's
difficult.
too much of a risk. They are unstable, and I think it's
Yeah.
a bit of a misconception as well about the headache thing, that people feel that they cause headaches. I
Yeah.
don't think there's any proven science there. I mean, I've been reading a lot about it, that they cause headaches.
I don't think so. I don't think it's proved. Of course, that it's very different to try a wine that it's just minimal sulfites that are natural made, or till about this 300, 200 per average. When you pass to massive amounts of sulfites,
Like
yes, of
commercial
course,
wines, yeah.
and it's no good. But that then is, of course, they are mass produced wines that
Yeah.
probably I don't work with. So uh, things like that, you choose what you drink basically. But it's not like against anything to have sulfites. I think it's a, yeah, it's a very hidden mist, and it's something people get panic of it, but it shouldn't. It actually can be very good for you as long as producers know what they are doing,
And
and
it's
it's with
controlled
the
level.
certain one. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Marta, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. You are
always nice to see.
always a field of information, so we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.